Welcome to Superhuman Customs. We got another fun custom for you today. Now, I've got some leftover pieces, just some random bodies, and I've been deciding what to do with them. And I haven't quite figured out all of it, but today we are going to use some of it. So we're going to take this head and this body, and we're going to make the villain Prometheus. Now, I don't know how many of you guys know Prometheus. He came out in the 90s. He's a fun villain who took on the Justice League, beat up Batman, that sort of stuff. Has kind of a fun look. And so we're gonna turn this guy into Prometheus. Why not? We got the pieces. So let's experiment, let's have some fun. Let's dive right in.
So I got his head on. This will be our Prometheus head. And I found this great piece of cape that can go across his chest because he has the white fabric that goes here. So let's start moving this guy forward. Primed some of the cape and this thing, and now I'm just gonna glue it into place real quick with my favorite glue. I'm gonna take these pauldrons off of this Ultron figure, and we're gonna use them for Prometheus. Little bit of super glue and we're off to the races. Let's go ahead and prime this guy, get him ready for painting. Before we prime Prometheus, on his shoulder pads, his little pauldrons here, he's got some like orbs. It's just a design element. And so I've taken these beads and I've cut them in half, and we're just going to glue them onto the pauldrons here, let them dry, and then we will prime them. And I got these things for his arm, and I'm just going to place some more of these beads in the glue. We're going to start working on his helmet, and he has these kind of pokey things that come off. So I'm taking these old Batman hands from a larger figure that I'm never going to use. I'm just going to cut off the little things that plug in, and those are going to be the things on his head. And we'll start doing the milliput. And normally these come off really easily. Use a little bit of elbow grease, and hopefully you'll get them. There we go. And they'll fly across the desk. But there we go. That'll be perfect. Let's just get this one now. So I've got some glue in place. As you can see, I put some milliput. We're going to make his mask here. So I'm just going to do the main part that goes across here and get it in place. And then I'll cut a little bit off using a razor blade. If I can find my razor blade, there it is. Then I'll cut off these edges, and I'll use them to make the sort of up and down areas here, like so. I'm just gonna plug them in, fold them over, whoops, like this. And remember, the milliput will stay wet, like clay-like for a while. And so it gives you a little bit of time to play around and kind of move stuff. Now, when it comes to molding something like this, it can be a pain in the butt because you're trying to get things perfect and square, and it doesn't always allow you to do that. So just take your time, and then once it dries, we can add a little bit. We can go through with the Dremel and see if we can make it so that things match a little bit more. But it's just all about doing your best, getting things as smooth as you can on the first go. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of fabric paint to make the sort of balls that he's got up here. I'm not going to go all out like I did with these, because these will be smaller and they'll just be more for a texture anyway. So yeah, just do your best and cut yourself some slack. While the milliput's drying, I'm going to put just a really quick coat of an orange on the pauldrons and on these down here, because obviously they're going to have more of a gold sheen, but I want them to look a little bit more bronze. And so instead of using a yellow, I'm going to use an orange. This actually is way more yellowy than I thought. It looked very orange in the thing, and it's actually much more of a bright yellow, but oh well, it's the most orange thing that I have, so we'll just stick with it. I really like this part of things because up until now he's looked incredibly haphazard. You know, we're adding beads and we're gluing things in place and we're priming him and all that stuff. And once you start adding a little bit of color like this and something becomes very uniform, it really starts to take on a feel where it's like, oh no, this is what the figure's supposed to look like. This is where we're moving toward. And so for me, this is a fun part. Up until now, it's always like, you know, it looks like crap. You start doing this to it, and suddenly it's like, oh, it's looking right. It's looking like a toy. So I'm just going to add a little bit of black fabric paint in here into the eyes because he's got kind of a black visor. You can't see his eyes. So I'm just going to add that in, and I'm going to use fabric paint because then it'll kind of deaden down where you see the eyes, so it will look more like a visor. Now that everything's finally dried, I'm going to do a light gold layer over these pauldrons to add the metallic to it. Now, like we've done with other figures that are metallic, we just need a light coat, which is why you always want to go over your base with a different color, like we did with this, you know, orangish yellow. I found that when I haven't done this in the past, I actually have a couple of figures that you'll see in the coming weeks that I did prior to all of this, where I just put down the gold base coat, and metallic paint gets very thick when you're trying to do a full coverage, and it does not look good. It ends up looking clumpy, and so this is how you want to do it. Just a nice light layer to cover it up. Since we've got the gold on there, what I'm going to do now is go over his little like mask deal here, and we're going to do a base coat of gunmetal gray. Now, most of Prometheus is kind of a purple, so the body is a really, really dark purple, and the mask here is more of a metallic purple. So again, like I said, with the metallic paints, you need to go really light. And so I'm going to do this base metal of gunmetal gray, the base layer, and then do the purple over the top. And so we're just going to go and cover up everything here and make him look cool. I'm really enjoying how this guy is coming out. He's a lesser known character. He took out the Justice League once in the 1990s. And then since then, I don't know if he's done really a whole lot. But I always thought his look was kind of cool. And, you know, if you can take out Batman and Superman and the whole Justice League, you know, you're worth an action figure. One thing I forgot to do since I've just started using the Dremel is to smooth this stuff out. So I painted it and I could really tell that it needed it. So we're just going to go through real quick, and we are going to Dremel this guy and get it so that these things are smooth. This is an excellent tool I found. And then I'll just do a real quick paint job over the top. What I've learned about the Dremel, I don't know how many of you have ever hung drywall before. I have, and I found that sanding down the edges once you put the grout or the plaster and stuff in place is what I found is that I always would kind of not sand enough. It would look good and I'd be like, oh, and then I would get there and it wouldn't look right because I hadn't sanded enough. And so I found that to be the case with the Dremel as well. You need to sand more than you think you should. And that gets you a better, a much better, smoother texture. And so I sanded this guy for a little while, and it looks like it's really started to straighten him out a little bit. And so I'm happy with how that's looking. So I'm just going to add the rest of this paint, and then we will move on to the black and the purple. Now we get to the fun part, and that is the painting of the body finally. You guys know me, I love when I get to a part where I get to do some pretty big changes, and this is the biggest one where we make him black. Now obviously we're going to go over this black with a light covering of the metallic purple, but this is where the character is really going to come together. And I love this part because he suddenly starts to look like Prometheus, and it's like, okay, we're looking good. It's nice. One of the things that I love is when you get to the point where you're here and you've taken some risks with doing some things. And obviously with this, we took some risks. We're using beads, we're using, we're not 3D printing anything. And so it's not turning out quite perfect. But it's fun to be able to do that and to see the changes. And when you get to this point and you start looking and going, oh, he's looking right. He's looking cool. That's a good feeling. Let's go ahead and start doing the purple over here on top of the silver. And just like we've discovered with all the other metallics, the lighter you can go, the better. And so I'm just getting a little bit on the brush and moving it all around. Because I want this to be, obviously I want it to be purple, but I want it to be, I don't want the paint to be clumpy. That's what I found with these metallics. So let's make sure they're not clumpy. I'm just gonna hit all these areas and then move on while we got the purple out to everything else on his body, because we're gonna do a coat on the black as well. And they should have a different tone between the silver and the black. That's the hope. I kept the neck either white or flesh tone, depending on where I was spraying the primer, because I wanted to have a different purple than the rest of the body. In the comics, it does. It has a much lighter purple that stands out much more. And so I kept it white so that the purple will stand out. Before I go through with the second coat on the light areas, I'm going to do a light coat on the black, because I want this to just be a really dark purple. And if we go nice and light, then that is exactly what we're going to get. See, look at that already. Yeah, that's what we're after. In the comics, it always shows him as being quite dark purple, only the accents, where the light hits, does it even look purple. And that's the look I'm going for. Using these metallic paints correctly gets you exactly the look you're after. So don't be afraid to go on nice and light and add those accents. Now let's go ahead and darken in the belt, because the belt is a darker purple. So we'll just add a little bit more than everything else on some of these areas. Some versions he's got a simple belt. Other versions he's got like a big bulky belt. I'm not going to worry about that. I'm just going to go with making it so that it's obvious that his belt is a deeper purple, and having that be the only statement needed. Sometimes that's all you want to do. Other times you want to go crazy. I've gone crazy enough with this guy. We can keep the belt simple. So I had a little bit of leftover milliput on a figure that I was working on, and I wasn't liking how the belt on Prometheus was turning out. So I just took it and literally just glued it into place. And I'm going to paint it white so that I can go over it with the metallic purple. And that way it will stand out, because it's supposed to just be a brighter purple, and it wasn't looking that way. So I think this will do it. And then while I'm here, I'm going to go through and I'm going to start painting the white and touching up everything up here. And then I'm torn on this figure, honestly. I'm not going to lie. Things haven't really turned out exactly the way that I kind of envisioned them when it came to using the beads. Because cutting them in half, they ended up being slightly different sizes. I don't know. Right now I'm thinking very heavily about this figure and how I want to proceed. So we'll figure something out and see how we want it to go. While I've been going through and doing this white, I've just been kind of debating on what to do with this figure. And I'm thinking with some of these metallics, I think I'm going to go through with silver and add a layer and ding them up a little bit, especially with the pauldrons. They're just not, I don't know, it's a mixture between looking really shiny and good, but with the beads being not exactly the same size when I cut them, to being like looking nice but crappy. So I'm thinking about maybe it'll be a good choice to go through and add those dings, and that'll help us to
make it to balance that out. I don't know, we'll see. It's an experiment, and that's what we're all about, is experimentation. Sometimes using fabric paint does not work out, but sometimes it really, really does. So I had some glue that just kind of clumped up over here. I took a little bit of fabric paint of white and I spread it across, and it fixed those. So now it looks like the fabric going across. So when you see things that are bugging you, sometimes a quick fix like that goes a long way. Now what I'm going to do with the rest of this stuff, your guess is as good as mine. All right, let's see what we can do with some silver over here. Just doing some dusting of silver. Because right now it's too perfectly purple. And my wife and kids are watching a musical right now, and the sound is very loud in the next room, so you might be hearing it. But I'm liking that. I'm thinking that's giving it a little bit more nuance. I do this differently now. Like when it comes to underneath, I just obviously filled it in with fabric paint. If I could go back, I'd take some of the plastic or something that I've got, and I would have made a visor to go underneath. I think that would have looked better. But at least now with this silver, I think it's making it look a little bit better. Let's do some of these pauldrons too, to see what we got. So I think just making it look a little bit more, I don't know, less perfect or more, I don't even know how to describe it, but it needs something. It needs something that's just going to draw away from the perfection of this gold and bronze. And I think this might be it. Just patching up all this stuff, going through and adding the purple. And if you couldn't hear the song before, I'm pretty sure you can hear it now because I can hear the music pretty loudly. But hey, they're enjoying themselves and they like musicals, so nothing wrong with that. One more thing I've decided to do with this guy before we wrap up is I'm going to do a light wash, I think, just a little bit in some of these areas. Just to make things a little bit, I don't know, just needs a little bit more realism to it. I'm going to go through these, see how you can go through them and it really can lighten it up. And then if you want to take a little bit of, let me get some toilet paper over here. I want to take a little bit of toilet paper to lessen it even more. Because I want it subtle. I don't want it to be really, really stark. At least in the white here. You know, I want it to just have a little bit less is more. But I think this is going to solve some of my problems that I'm running into with it's just looking too perfect. Is that it will dirty these up a little bit. I think that'll solve some of the problem here with the beads not being exactly the same. Yeah, I think that's solving some of that problem. Then I'm going to do in here a little bit. Having to do a little bit more creative masking than I usually do with this guy. So I'm just going through and doing some silver highlights in different places just to make things stand out a little bit more. I changed the overall feel of the little beads, and so I added a little bit more silver to each one just to make them just stand out a little bit more and feel like a slightly different material. And that helped a lot. So, you know, you just got to keep moving, adding a little bit here and there and seeing what looks good and what makes things stand out. I think the silver makes the purple stand out from the black a little bit more. And I can make the lines a little straighter. And that's what we're gonna do. And we're just about done with this guy, I think. Not perfect, but we learned some good stuff.
I've done everything I pretty much can with this guy, and I think he's turned out as good as is possible. But he's generally got like these little red lights or lasers or something at the bottom of these things, so I'm going to take a little bit of fabric paint, and I'm just going to add the red to each of these. And then I think we're going to call it good, unless I have any strokes of inspiration.
And there you go, something different. You know, sometimes it's fun to do really lesser known characters. I always like Prometheus from his first appearance, you know, being able to take out the Justice League. He's smart, he's kind of an anti-Batman, and having a figure of him is great. There are things that I would change now that I've done him, particularly with the visor area. It would have been cool to take some like sunglass material and put that as the visor and then put the milliput over the top. So in the future, I would probably try something like that. But for just a first try on this character, he turned out pretty well. I'm really happy with how when I went through and I kind of accented with silver the little orbs that he's got, it helped to make them just a little bit more natural looking and not quite so just funky weird, because they do have kind of a funkiness to them. But overall, a fun custom. I'll have to try him again sometime in the future and see if I can really get him down to how I want him. But for now, this is a good placeholder. Thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you learned some stuff and enjoy yourselves, and that these are really fun custom videos to watch. Let me know if you guys want to see any changes or if there's any specific characters you'd like to see. Just let me know. Again, I'm Stephen Human. Check out stephenhuman.com for all of my novels, as I am a sci-fi thriller novelist. That's what I do for my day job. And I will see you guys next week with a new custom video.